All right, guys, let's talk some Nate Diaz. So last week, and I don't break news. Like, don't ever come to me for like inside scoop. Sometimes I'll fall across something. It'll be some guy I'm buddies with, or I'll pick up something over her. But I brought you that Nate is training for a fight. Now, that's as far as I could go. Nate Diaz is buckled down. He started like an official training camp where you're wrapping things up and the coaches are coming in. I don't have anything more than that. And I told you it might be for Chimaev, just because that's the rumor that won't go away. In addition to the fact that Chimaev hasn't been booked for anything else. Great. No evidence. But there's also a strong possibility of Kevin Holland. Now, is any of this right? Is any single thing that I just said there right? Well, Nate Diaz went out on Twitter, and all he did is post a photo, not one word, not one caption. It's of himself in a ring sparring. He's got the headgear on, he's got the big glove, he's actually sparring. We are to then believe that it's a current photo, which only a weirdo would send out a photo from like 5 months ago today. And Nate is not a weirdo. So Nate is giving us a message. The message is, I am in training. The question is for what? It's a hard secret to keep, by the way. I'm a little bit light on the Chimaev angle, only because the first time I heard Chimaev was October, possibly November of last year. And it was for Nick Diaz. Then somewhere at the turn of 2022, it became Nate. But like that could be a deal breaker. Nate has a code. And that literally could be a deal breaker, that a fight that was associated with his brother, then he would never take it in case his brother still wants. Like, I mean, that's a real thing. Not to mention, Kevin Holland makes a ton of sense. Kevin Holland called him out. Kevin Holland was pretty vocal about it. It was one of the better ideas. It was one of the better call-outs that I've heard in a period of time that I never thought of until Kevin Holland said it. I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah, him and Nate. And then Kevin went very quiet. What's hard about every rumor that I'm starting right now, you can't keep a secret in this sport. You can telephone, telegraph, or tell a fighter. The word is going to get out. It just is. And the only reason I even have the scoop that I have prior to Nate sending out the picture is Richard Perez, famed boxing coach, but Nate's boxing coach, is training guys in Medford, Oregon, about 4 hours from me. And Richard packed up his stuff and said, hey, I'm headed back to Stockton. Got to go get Nate ready to go. Of course, follow-up question was asked to coach, who is he fighting? And he said, I don't know. And I don't think Richard Perez would tell you, I don't know, right? I think he would tell, they don't have the match yet. So that could also explain why it's staying a little bit quiet. Generally, when two fighters go quiet, that is your clue that an agreement has been made. So when Kevin Holland's calling out Nate, and he's got great momentum with it. I mean, people were really behind that. We were all behind, hey, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, let's get those two in there. Two long guys, they got the jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, love the fight, right? And then Kevin went quiet. Okay, there's a clue. But what we can say is that Nate is in training now at 170 pounds. Something very interesting over the weekend came out. It was George St. Pierre. Now, you guys are getting more George St. Pierre right now. You've got more George St. Pierre in the last 6 months than you had when George had pay-per-views to sell, when he had tickets to sell for venues like Madison Square Garden. George was just a hard interview to get when he was buckled down in training, but he's talking a little bit more, and he did an interview, and it was very interesting. Somebody was asking him how he would do with Khabib and Usman. And it's this impossible question to answer. If George wants to have pride of himself and say he believed in himself and believed in his own skill, then he looks like a jerk, right? It's one of those things, and he never wants to do that. He always praises these other guys, but at the same time, he's got an ego, and he does believe he could beat them. It's always just one of these tough spots. But we also understand why George St. Pierre, who is rated as the greatest fighter to have ever done it, would be being asked about Khabib, and why he would be asked about Kamaru Usman. We understand that. George brought in Khamzat Chimaev. He kept those two. He kept Khabib, he kept Kamaru, but then he also brought in Khamzat Chimaev. What does that mean? I mean, how well do you have to be looking on tape? How promising is your probable future for George St. Pierre to pull you into this elitist club that only involved himself, Khabib, and Kamaru Usman. It was a huge compliment, and it kind of came out of nowhere. And I am personally displeased. The Khamzat Chimaev experiment and that marketing angle is the most effective that I have ever personally seen within our sport. And we've had some big ones. Conor McGregor came out of nowhere. Ronda Rousey was bigger than life. The Chimaev fight instantly, fight anybody, fight at any weight class. Stop you in the first round, smash everybody, bring somebody, was the single greatest marketing I've ever seen. I've never seen anything work that well. And he's over now, and people like him now, people know who he is. I don't know why we took our foot off that gas. I don't agree with it. I don't want it to have happened. And I genuinely wonder that question. I genuinely wonder. For a while there, maybe he's hurt. Yeah, maybe he's sick. Nah, Chimaev's out calling guys out. He doesn't have any clarity either. Belal Muhammad versus Chimaev makes all the sense in the world. Nate Diaz versus Chimaev is the rumor that won't go away. Kamaru Usman has his hands full with Leon. And I can live with any answer, by the way, as it pertains to Chimaev. We don't have to put him in there every 7 days. I can live with Chimaev is going to be held as a possible backup fighter if anything was to happen to Kamaru Usman or Leon. I could live with that. I want to talk about it. We celebrate that. We gear to it. We know that he's in training. He's getting his weight down. He's getting his paperwork done. I mean, there's all sorts of things and all sorts of storylines that we would have just with that. My gripe is that we don't even have that. We're not getting a whole lot of clarity. Now, somebody else was asking about 170 pounds over the weekend. Oh, it was Luque. Luque was asked about 170 pounds and a possible fight between Rakhmonov and Chimaev. And Luque, whose opinion matters, he was the #1 contender 60 days ago, for goodness sakes. He said Rakhmonov. So what, you might think. So what, you might think. But it's a big deal. It's a big deal. When the most publicized, more headlines than Conor McGregor, no fighter captivated the media more in the last 12 months, and you could really back that up closer to about 18, 19 months. No fighter stormed more headlines. And now you have a guy within the division who was a #1 contender 60 days ago who's picking against him. I mean, it's a big deal. I had a fortune cookie when I was a kid. I've never forgotten this. And all the fortune cookie said, greatness is something that people have to be reminded of often. And it is so true. Here you have Chimaev, the greatest marketing experiment I've seen, on a fast track to Kamaru Usman, to the point that Kamaru is saying, come on, sooner rather than later, that Dana White is having to fend away in the media why he's not putting this guy in title fights. This worldwide push, getting responses from the Kamaru Usmans of the world, from the Ali Abdelazizes of the world, from the Israel Adesanyas of the world. Now he's got a guy in his own division picking against him, another guy in the division who you guys probably aren't overly familiar with. It's a big deal. Greatness is something you have to be reminded of often. St. Pierre just reminded us the category we should have Chimaev in. And old Chael can't get any clarity. I'm not happy about it. I don't know what's going on. I really don't. And it was to the point where I genuinely thought, illness, injury, guys, you will remember we thought he had a visa issue. Do you guys remember that? Do you follow me well enough? I don't want to shine my own wheels, but you remember when he can't get into the country, and we all believed it. We all accept, okay, that would make sense. That explains why he isn't booked. I happen to be at the PI. I take out my little iPhone. There's Chimaev. Chimaev's in the cage sparring with Latifi right in front of me, the guy that can't get into the country. So he wasn't hurt. He wasn't injured. He does want to fight. He does want to compete. He's calling people out all over the place. I think it's important that we book him in any regard. Anything's a booking. It doesn't have to be a fight. A reserve fight is a booking. Hey, we're not going to use him until December. That's a booking. Hey, get into training camp. Sharpen up Hermanson. Get Till ready. Anything. Some clarity. a little bit of clarity on Chimaev. I really do. I don't complain very often. At least I don't think I do. I really think this is a miss, and we've got to have that guy and what he's going to do and when he's going to do it. We've got to have that. People have got to have that information.